The affable girl with a slightly divergent gaze goes by the name Nastya Muravyova. On the 3rd of July this year, she was poised to celebrate her 9th birthday, and in September, she was to embark upon her studies in the 3rd grade. Regrettably, all these anticipated events eluded her. It transpires that on the 30th of June in the year 2021, Nastya departed from her familial abode and vanished without a trace. Why did this enigmatic disappearance occur? Who orchestrated this mysterious event, which initially captivated the entirety of Tumen and subsequently captured the attention of the entire nation? What connection do other children, who have vanished without a trace in Tumen over the past 2 decades, have to this unfolding narrative? Let us commence by acknowledging that Nastya Muravyova hails from a large and prolific family. She is accompanied by her monozygotic twin brother, Victor, and 2 elder sisters, 18-year-old Tatiana and 15-year-old Angelina. Nastya's father, Sergei Muravyov, previously served a sentence for homicide and was released on parole in the year 2019. Unfortunately, Nastya never had the opportunity to experience maternal love and care. During Sergei's absence, the children's mother succumbed to the allure of alcohol and relinquished the responsibility of their upbringing. Consequently, they were consigned to a children's home in the settlement of Borky. From there, Nastya was reclaimed by her grandmother, Sergei's mother, who cared for her until the man's release. Sergei, gainfully employed as a laborer, supplemented his income with occasional odd jobs. The upbringing of the children was facilitated by both their grandmother and Tatiana, the eldest daughter. The expansive Muravyov family resided in Tumen, in the vicinity of the lumber yard, within a modest boarding house situated at 38 Shipbuilders Street. These residences, colloquially referred to as small square apartments, characterize this area deemed notably disadvantaged. The streets lack not only surveillance cameras, but also lampposts and bulbs in the hallways, depriving children of secure places to play. Sporting sections, development centers, and clubs are conspicuously scarce, while numerous liquor stores and bars proliferate. Former inmates residing in these boarding houses casually traverse the streets. Nonetheless, the precariousness of this district will become increasingly apparent in due course. Volodina, a neighbor of the Muravyovs, recounts that Nastya typically spent her entire day outdoors, beseeching for sustenance, while her grandmother and father indulged in excessive alcohol consumption. On occasion, the young girl even collected cigarette butts to facilitate Sergei's smoking habit. Volodina asserts that she personally visited the Child Protective Services office on 3 occasions, yet no discernible response ensued. The narrative of the disappearance itself commences on the morning of the 30th of June 2021, when Nastya Muravyova left her home. According to her sister Tatiana, the girl departed around 10 or 11 in the morning, heading towards the neighboring boarding house located at 40 Shipbuilders Street, with the intention of downloading a game on her phone and watching video clips. The allure lay in the fact that Wi-Fi without a password was accessible on the 4th floor, a privilege frequently enjoyed by local children, given the dearth of alternative entertainment options. Nastya visited there daily in the company of her peers. On the eve of her departure, she neither quarreled nor engaged in conflicts with anyone. There were no apparent reasons for her not to return home. Nevertheless, on that day, she failed to make her way back. Residents of the adjacent boarding house noted that they did not see Nastya that day, observing nothing indicative of her presence in their building. On that fateful morning, the girl was captured by surveillance cameras installed in a grocery store, a frequent haunt for Nastya. The local shopkeeper recounted that the schoolgirl often visited the store with her twin brother, but on the day of her disappearance, she was entirely alone. She purchased something inconsequential, such as pastries or sweets, before departing in an unknown direction. Nothing peculiar or suspicious, including around the store, was noted by its employees at that time. Following this, Nastya Muravyova was purportedly seen in the vicinity of the Ornica Cafe in the city around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, unaccompanied by adults. Lastly, on that day, she was allegedly spotted in the evening at the playground near the 67th school, between 1600 and 2000 hours. Following this, her traces were irrevocably lost. As previously mentioned, Nastya did not return home that evening, but her relatives were not overly perturbed. presuming she had departed to her grandmother's abode. The girl frequently stayed overnight there. It was only when it was realized that the child had not appeared there that her family grew concerned. Nastya was independently sought from around 10 o'clock in the evening, with the search encompassing the neighborhood and involving inquiries with neighbors and the girl's friends. The search persisted until morning, and only then, when it yielded no results, did the family decide to approach the police. On the subsequent day, the 1st of July, a criminal case was initiated in relation to the transpired events. It would seem finding the girl, considering she possessed a phone, would be a straightforward task for specialists. However, the complication lay in the fact that the device given to Nastya by her father lacked a SIM card, rendering tracking impossible despite all intentions. This circumstance, coupled with the absence of a coherent surveillance system, significantly complicated the search efforts. Following the dissemination of the news regarding the mysterious disappearance of Nastya Muravyova, volunteers, in collaboration with law enforcement, undertook a comprehensive canvassing of the entire district, lumberyards, and scrutinized every nook and cranny. In this quest, dedicated groups such as the Sova Search Team, the Eliza Alert Team of the Tyumen region, the Humanitarian Volunteer Corps, the Tobolsk Phoenix Search Team, and other compassionate entities actively participated. Ordinary citizens, moved by empathy, also fervently engaged in the endeavor, forming their own collectives. Merely within the inaugural night, volunteers, accompanied by seasoned searchers, traversed scores of kilometers, spanning from the vicinity of the disappearance to the outskirts of Tyumen. Their mandate encompassed a thorough examination of all locations where the girl was last seen, including abandoned houses, entrances, basements, attics, beaches, heat network collector systems, storm drainage systems, fire reservoirs, transformer substations, and other potentially hazardous sites. Over 5,500 orientations were disseminated, drawing insights from several hundred city residents, including the girl's relatives. Nastya's father, Sergei Muravyov, was implored to the police station on numerous occasions, subjected to rigorous interrogations, and even subjected to a polygraph test, which conclusively affirmed his veracity when attesting to his innocence. The girl's grandmother was also interrogated. Only after failing to procure evidence of their involvement in the disappearance did law enforcement officials cease their relentless pursuit of the girl's family and proceed to search for other suspects. Police and investigative committee vehicles patrolled the area around the clock, their beacons illuminating the nocturnal landscape. Divers scrutinized the water bodies adjacent to the pristine pond where local children frequently frolicked and where, theoretically, Nastya might have ventured, yet their efforts yielded naught. Within a week, search teams, aided by unmanned aerial vehicles, scrutinized over 50 kilometers of terrain, examining and scrutinizing more than 3,000 images. Comprehensive aquatory inspections spanned over 125 kilometers of the shoreline. DNA analyses were requisitioned from inhabitants of local boarding houses. Fingerprints were taken, but unifying leads remained elusive. As per the assertions of the search teams themselves, testimonies surfaced but failed to corroborate. Various accounts proliferated on social media, purporting to have spotted the girl in different areas of the city. All conceivable scenarios were explored, ranging from a simple escape to criminal hypotheses. The sole substantive clue in this narrative remained the video footage from the store, capturing the elusive Nastya Muravyova. At a certain juncture, investigators and search personnel from Moscow even journeyed to Tyumen. The criminal case was transferred to the main investigative department of the Investigative Committee of Russia, falling under the personal oversight of Chairman Bastrikin. Concurrently, a criminal case for negligence linked to representatives of Child Protective Services and juvenile affairs officers who allegedly failed to exercise adequate control over the missing girl's family was initiated. In early July, the girl's sister and brother were relocated to a social rehabilitation center where psychologists commenced their work with them. Following 4 weeks of fruitless searches for Nastya, where substantive leads remained elusive, neither law enforcement nor search teams nor volunteers relinquished their efforts, persisting in their unwavering commitment to locating the missing girl. In response to information regarding her whereabouts and assistance in solving the crime, Governor Alexander Moore has announced a reward of 1 million rubles. So what could have transpired with Nastya Muravyova? Where could she have vanished? And who might be behind it? Each individual pondered upon this question at that time. Multiple hypotheses were formulated, despite the investigation yielding virtually no tangible leads for an extended period. There were at least a few potential suspects. Literally, the day after the schoolgirl's disappearance, in one of the apartments of the adjacent boarding house where she presumably went for free Wi-Fi, a peculiar conflagration occurred. A fire erupted directly in his apartment, instigated by a local resident named Valentine, afflicted by a mental disorder. As recounted later by Valentine's mother on July 1st, he sent her out for cigarettes. The woman was absent for approximately 30 minutes, and upon her return, she discovered a horrifying scene. The man had attempted to incinerate certain items and documents in his room, after which he leaped out of the third-floor window with his dog, succumbing later to the injuries sustained. The fire was noticed and extinguished by one of the volunteers who, at that very moment, was engaged in tasks related to the search for the girl. He entered the apartment when the man was no longer there. Volunteers promptly relayed the information about the incident to the investigative committee and sought permission from the Emergency Situations Ministry personnel to inspect the premises. However, their request was denied, citing the absence of anything of interest for the search within. It would later be revealed that Valentin himself had worked with Nastia's father, Sergei, and knew the girl personally. His mother revealed that the missing schoolgirl had never visited them. But on the day before her disappearance, on July 29th, her father, Sergei Muravyov, visited them along with her twin brother. The man was inebriated and lamented to a friend about not being paid at work. Nevertheless, despite all these circumstances, the two incidents, the schoolgirl's disappearance and the peculiar fire, could not be conclusively linked, especially considering that there were other equally intriguing versions. The second version, endorsed by the girl's relatives as well, posited that someone might have put her in a car and driven her in an unknown direction or lured her to someplace and detained her there. There were no unequivocal testimonies to support this. Nevertheless, an orientation was disseminated by the investigation, focusing on a man who, according to some information, could be connected to Nastia Muravyova's disappearance. This was a dark-haired, middle-aged man of non-Slavic appearance, seen by local children at the lumber yard on the day of the girl's disappearance. According to eyewitnesses, this individual traveled in a white foreign car. The vehicle had a damaged headlight, and a keychain resembling a reduced 50-ruble banknote hung inside the cabin. Another one of the most sensational hypotheses was linked to the potential involvement of a local resident with an unusual name for those parts, Paul Ginach Dojinachi. The crux of the matter lies in the fact that shortly after Nastia Muravyova's disappearance, the internet was abuzz with a story published by journalist Anastasia Mironova, originally from Tyumen, but currently residing in Petersburg. In this narrative, the woman recounted tales of Tyumen locals whom she believed could be implicated in the disappearance of both Nastia and another girl, Anna Anisimova, who also went missing from Tyumen in 2010. Mironova recounts her youth in Tyumen and harbors suspicions regarding the abductions and other crimes against minors committed during that period by an individual named Polyo Ginach Dojinachi. This 65-year-old man resides in the Yambav district. According to media reports, the man changed his name. He was formerly known as Ivan Bychenko. It is also reported that he may have a criminal record, allegedly for engaging in a relationship with an underage girl, for which, in '89, he was convicted and exiled to Tyumen. As per Mironova's account, in the late 90s, he lived on Yamskaya Street and spent an unusually extensive amount of time with the local youth. Anastasia asserts that this interaction with children occasionally crossed boundaries and bore criminal undertones. According to her, the man did not act alone but in the company of two brothers, Alexander and Sergei Tokmakov, who also resided in Tyumen at that time. In her narrative, the journalist delineated a detailed history of their appearance and stay in Tyumen, explaining why, in her opinion, one of them could be involved in the disappearance of the girl, as well as other children who went missing in Tyumen earlier. It's worth noting that in May 21st, several months before Nastia Muravyova's disappearance, this same Paul was captured on camera approaching two girls, inviting them to his country house. He promised to treat them to sausage, jam, cocktails, and candies. The girls declined, but the moment of interaction was captured and circulated on the internet, sparking a scandal in local communities. However, there are serious questions about Miranova's account. For instance, in her story about harassment of children in the Menides, two sisters named Tanya and Masha are presented as victims. According to Miranova, Masha suffered violence from Pol during her childhood. Yet many years after the described events, in a conversation with a journalist, the girl denies that anything of the sort happened. She states unequivocally that it never occurred, and she couldn't forget such an incident. Maria claims that she never saw Pol touch anyone during all that time. Moreover, Maria contacted Miranova and demanded that information about the alleged violence against her not be disseminated. In response, the journalist began to threaten to disclose her identity if she continued to oppose her. Furthermore, there is no substantial evidence in this revelatory publication. Nevertheless, law enforcement officials did express interest in Pol, revealing that during Nastya Muravyova's disappearance, the man was hospitalized. He was there from June 28th to July 6th, whereas the girl went missing on June 30th. There are confirming documents for his hospitalization. In the end, confirmation of information about a possible committed crime was never found. Another version of the girl's disappearance, which stirred the entire Tyumen, emerged unexpectedly. It all began on August 16th when the lumberyard was once again filled with police, investigators, and canine units. The reason being that they received information about an individual who allegedly harassed a small child. According to eyewitnesses, a certain man in blue shorts dragged two little boys into the basement on Startovaya Street in broad daylight. The elder emerged immediately, while the younger, along with the man, came out 2 minutes later. They were captured by surveillance cameras, clearly depicting the children resisting. Later, they apprehended the 39-year-old man and discovered that he worked as a furniture maker and had previously been convicted of murder. He was often seen with children in Monetka nearby, where he bought them sweets and then took them somewhere. Upon his arrest, he confessed to committing a crime against one of the boys born in 2011. This immediately raised concerns that he might be implicated in Nastya Muravyova's disappearance, since he lived in the same house as her. However, soon it became apparent that the situation with the boys had no bearing on Nastya's disappearance. The police had to ascertain this quite promptly. Yet, initially, the most prominent and perhaps the most sensational version prevailed. The crux of the matter lies in the fact that almost from the onset of Nastya Muravyova's disappearance, it became linked to a series of other missing children in Tyumen, spanning nearly 2 decades, prompting contemplation about the existence of an enigmatic and elusive maniac in the city. The first wave of such disappearances commenced in the late 90s. On the 30th of May, in 97, 16-year-old Lyuba Simonova vanished in the area between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She was returning home from her last exam at the school in the Upyashivo settlement. Her route from school to home traversed an asphalt road in a wooded area. During the search, the authorities found neither Lyuba nor any potential abductor. Throughout the investigation, several theories emerged. A group of men allegedly surveilling her friends, and a suspicious man in a red foreign car seen by the same friends. However, none of these had any substantiation. After some time, in 88, 13-year-old Ira Kasyanova disappeared in Tyumen. Little is known about her. She had a slight speech impediment and a large birthmark on her right breast. At the time of her disappearance, the girl was dressed in a white cashmere beret, a violet jacket, a black blazer, a red blouse, a black skirt, and leather boots. According to local residents living adjacent to the Simonovs, the girl grew up in an affluent family. Following Ira's disappearance, she was sought not only by her parents and the police, but also by friends and colleagues of the schoolgirl's father, yet she was never found. In the winter of '89, another teenage girl disappeared, 12-year-old Elena Imamova. Typically, she returned from school with the parents of her classmate who worked with her father. However, on that day, they quarreled, prompting Elena to leave school early. She took the usual bus, got off at her stop, but never made it home. The second wave of disappearances began on the 19th of February in 2011 when 11-year-old Sonia Teleshova vanished between 5 and 6 o'clock after school. This time, the child was found 2 days later, unfortunately strangled. However, there were no signs of violence. almost exactly a year later in February 2012, not far from the Utiashivo settlement, 13-year-old Anya Buklina disappeared. The police discovered her body only in April. Similar to Sonia, Anya was strangled, with no evident signs of violence detected by experts. The most chilling aspect is that throughout this time, the girl remained alive. She was held somewhere and subjected to starvation, only meeting her demise a couple of days before discovery. In the case of Anya, amidst this sequence of disappearances, she stands apart as the biological sister of the first girl to go missing, Lyuba Simonova, who disappeared in '97. After these mysterious disappearances in Tyumen, a lull ensued for several years, until, in the autumn of '28, another child's disappearance stirred the city. On the 26th of November, in '28, at 6:30 in the evening, 8-year-old Edek Alimbaev was on the sports ground of the 35th school. He went there after classes to engage in some physical activities. The boy was part of a sports section, but for some reason, he did not attend the section's activities inside the school and instead remained in the school gymnasium. One of the pupils recounted that she saw Edek the next day near the school. It is noteworthy to mention that, according to her account, he was attired in a navy windbreaker. This is intriguing since the last time he was seen, he was wearing a red down jacket. Interestingly, Edek's mother later failed to locate that very navy jacket at home. Presumably, Edek took it with him on the day of his disappearance for his training session. The entire city rallied for the search then. Even a military unit joined the efforts. Soldiers meticulously scoured the wooded areas and schools in the vicinity of the boy's disappearance, yet no traces of the child were unearthed. A year later, in 2009, in the village of Lugovoy, 12-year-old Nastya Lozhkina vanished. Around lunchtime, the girl went to buy bread, and when she exited the store, no one saw her again. The store confirmed that she was there. She bought 2 loaves of bread and bid farewell to the shopkeeper. Initially, her parents frantically searched the village, but the girl was nowhere to be found. Later, some witnesses recalled that she allegedly got into a Zhiguli either white or green. Nastya had a Samsung mobile phone with her, and in the hope that she might call, her phone balance was replenished after her disappearance. However, this did not prove helpful. Several attempts were made to call the missing schoolgirl, but no one answered. Subsequently, a call detail record was generated, yet it yielded no information. The girl remains missing to this day. Many Tyumen residents still vividly remember the high-profile case of Anya Anisimova. Upon scrutinizing her photo, one can observe an uncanny resemblance to Nastya Muravyova, albeit slightly older. The girl was in the 6th grade at school No. 57, and on the day of her disappearance, she went to lessons during the 2nd shift. She was last seen in the vicinity of Lev Tolstoy Street and Proletarskaya, but the veracity of this information is uncertain. Anya's parents and class teachers only learned in the evening that she never made it to school. The entire city was on edge for a long time after the mysterious disappearance of the girl. Hundreds of concerned Tyumen residents, including volunteers and police officers, searched for Anya. Despite the dedicated efforts of volunteers, police, the best law enforcement personnel, and even the assistance of psychics, no results were achieved. In Tyumen, Anya Anisimova's case was transferred to neighboring Ekaterinburg, and in 2015, it was handed over to the investigative committee of the Russian Federation overseeing the Ural Federal District. However, there are still no new updates on the case. Finally, almost 11 years after the last disappearance in the series, on the 30th of June, 2021, 8-year-old Nastya Muravyova goes missing. Concerning all these disappearances, there were numerous speculations that the children might have been taken abroad or used for illegal activities in Russia. There were reports that in Nalchik, Anya was supposedly seen begging dressed as a gypsy at a market. Unfortunately, this information could not be verified as that specific camp disappeared. However, the primary theory, as mentioned earlier, remains the notion that all these disappearance cases are linked by the presence of the same perpetrator, the enigmatic Tyumen maniac. It is reported that shortly before Anya Anisimova's disappearance, and concerning girls aged 10 and 11, according to witnesses, a certain man approached them twice within a few days, asking them to accompany him to show them something. He was also seen in the area of the disappearance of Anya from School No. 57. Based on the accounts of these girls, a composite sketch was roughly compiled. There is also information about an underage witness who allegedly saw Anya talking to this man. He described the man as driving a Semirka, a colloquial term for a Lada 7 Series. This car was searched by traffic police officers. Extensive efforts were made to locate it, but unfortunately, it yielded no results. Andriy Karmeshky, the head of the Public Organization for a Safe Childhood, noted that the missing girls shared a common vehicle and were approximately the same age. All of them fell within one territorial triangle. All the children were between 8 and 16 years old, of petite stature. They all disappeared during the day, most often on their way home from school. However, the most crucial aspect noted by many concerning several girls, Bukhina, Alina Imamova, and Nastya Lashkina, according to volunteer orientations and photos, was a shared physical characteristic, a slight strabismus, precisely like that of Nastya Muravyova. Later, the investigative committee of the Tyumen region reported that the cases of Anya Anisimova, Nastya Lashkina, Alina Imamova, and Kasyanova from the Tyumen region were transferred to the investigative committee of the Russian Federation overseeing the Ural Federal District. The investigation into these 4 girls was consolidated into one. It remains unclear why the cases of other missing children were not included in this list. After the extensive coverage of all these cases, Alexander Bastukin, the head of the investigative committee, instructed his subordinates to report on the progress of the investigation into cases of unexplained child disappearances in the Tyumen region at various times. Andriy Malakov dedicated a special broadcast to the disappearance of Nastya Muravyeva and other children in Tyumen. At that time, their relatives visited the studio, and among the invited experts was Dmitry, a former scientific consultant of the main department of criminology of the Investigative Committee of Russia. It was he who once hypothesized that the cases of the missing children in Tyumen should be consolidated, and even compiled a psychological portrait of the presumed maniac. According to his account, in the year 2010, this individual was approximately 40 to 45 years old. He does not arouse suspicion in anyone, has no previous convictions, and lives or lived with a woman who has an 11 or 13-year-old daughter. Initially residing in the suburbs of Tyumen near the settlement of Upyashivo, the perpetrator later moved to a multi-story building. He graduated from a technical college and worked as a laborer at one of the transportation enterprises. The maniac also utilized the internet and kept track of the progress of investigations. Additionally, the criminal presumably had a dacha inherited from his parents. He abducted children by posing as a distant relative and offering to give them a ride home or to school. Moreover, Kiryakin elaborated on how to safeguard one's children, asserting that the criminal would certainly not target a child with intelligent timepieces on their wrist, nor would he choose a child leaving school and making a call to someone. Most likely, this call is to parents, and after the call, adults will begin calculating the time when the child will call back from home. In turn, the criminal needs approximately 4 to 5 hours before the child is missed. According to Kiryakin, criminals of this nature are very afraid of being apprehended. Furthermore, such an individual is unlikely to choose children who travel in groups, as it is always easier to lead away and persuade a single child. Shortly after the 19th of August in the year 2021, a month and a half after the disappearance, Nastya Muravyeva's body was unexpectedly discovered on the premises of a logging base, wrapped in numerous plastic bags and a cardboard box. The girl was found near a lake not far from the abandoned gas station on Domostroitly Street 5, 2 kilometers from her home. Municipal workers discovered a suspicious bag while trimming grass on the lake's shore and immediately alerted emergency services. The bag with the box was likely left there at night, as it was not present the evening before. The location had been checked multiple times before. It was revealed that the child's hands were bound with electrical wire, her mouth taped shut with scotch tape, and her belongings were also in the bag. Nastya was dressed only in a t-shirt. Following the conducted examination, it was revealed that the child perished in the initial days after her disappearance. Additionally, it became evident that she had been subjected to indignities, leaving only the task of identifying the individual responsible. Immediately upon the discovery of Nastya Muravyeva's body near her home in Tyumen, a spontaneous memorial arose, where on its doorstep, compassionate individuals brought flowers and countless toys on the 30th of June for the last time. A couple of days later, as if by the dictate of malevolent fate, near this very memorial, due to an unfortunate accident, Nastia's close uncle met his demise. Early in the morning, he collapsed nearby and later succumbed in the hospital. The man was merely 40 years old. Almost a week after the discovery of the body on the 25th of August, near the house on Straightly 40, where Nastia Muravieva last went for free Wi-Fi, law enforcement personnel gathered once again. Information surfaced that the primary suspect in the schoolgirl's murder had been found. Disposing of the body, he made a series of mistakes that quickly led investigators to his trail. The Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs disclosed that the girl's body was wrapped in polyethylene, a piece of plastic wrap, and was placed in a box from household appliances. Investigators discovered that this very appliance, it turned out, had been handed over to a local furniture workshop to be incorporated into a kitchen set. When scrutinizing the company's employees at one of their homes and on the second piece of the same plastic wrap, during the search, they found cardboard similar to the polyethylene used to bind the girl's hands and distinctive traces on the carpet. Furthermore, reports indicated that his car was seen shortly before the discovery of the body in the same location where it was later found. As it was revealed, the man had been renting his residence since late spring, when he quarreled with his spouse. Law enforcement officers removed all items from the apartment during the search and sealed the doors. Only the DNA comparison remained. The suspect turned out to be a 40-year-old Vitaly Berezhnoi, a native of the city of Nigin in the Khanty-Mansi Autonomous Region. It is known that the man previously served in a Special Forces unit and from 2008 to 2011 worked as a law enforcement officer in Nigin. Alongside his wife, the suspect opened a home daycare called Little Gnome for children in the nursery group. There, he assisted in enrolling children from 6 months old. On social media, he has numerous photos from children's performances where he played the roles of Santa Claus and other characters. In 2012, the daycare's operations were suspended due to violations of sanitary and epidemiological norms, and an administrative offense report was drawn up against his wife. In 2014, the legal entity on which the daycare was registered was liquidated. A year after these events, Vitaly Berezhnoi, along with his wife, moved to Tyumen. At the time of his arrest, he was working in a local furniture workshop, assembling cabinets and kitchens. Local volunteers reported that after Nastia Muravieva's disappearance, Vitaly Berezhnoi participated in the search for the girl. He sat in the headquarters at Lisobaza, inquiring whether the volunteers had managed to uncover anything. Investigative actions continued for some time. It was soon revealed that the DNA test confirmed the man's involvement in the murder. However, assumptions about his potential connection to a series of other child disappearances in Tyumen were not corroborated. At the time of the first crime of the presumed Tyumen maniac, he was only 16. During questioning, Berezhnoi provided confessional statements, acknowledging that on the fateful morning of June 30th, in an intoxicated state of alcohol and narcotics, he encountered the girl on the staircase landing of that very building where she had come to catch Wi-Fi. He lured her into his ground-floor apartment, bound her with tape, committed indignities, and subsequently strangled her. The man admitted that all this time, he kept the body in the refrigerator, and only in mid-August, as the odor became unbearable, he took the packaged body in a box, wrapped in plastic bags, to the lake shore. The denizens residing on the same landing as the suspect assert that they seldom encountered Vitaly at the sanatorium. Few were personally acquainted with him, and some were entirely oblivious to any potential malefactor. It is known that shortly before the recounted events, Vitaly Berezhnoi parted ways with his wife, and at the forest base, he was seen in the company of a young lady. Acquaintances recount that they were often seen together. Their relationship exuded warmth and tenderness. They cohabited, yet it remains uncertain on whose territory precisely. A colleague of the young lady, Vitaly, communicated that she detected no aggression from him during their interactions. On the contrary, she only observed positive behavior. Colleagues from the workplace, following Nastia Muravieva's disappearance, interacted with him daily and similarly spoke positively of him. Many still find it inconceivable that he could perpetrate such a heinous crime. However, a few remarked that of late, the man exhibited peculiar behavior, becoming nervous and requesting financial assistance. Later, the supervisor of Vitaly, who initially disbelieved that his employee could ruthlessly dispatch a little girl, addressed journalists. According to him, everyone considered Berezhnov a decent fellow. So, why did the murderer not dispose of the body in another area? Why did he carry it a mere couple of kilometers from home? Some opined that, in this situation, it was the most logical course of action. An abandoned and inaccessible location, scrutinized multiple times, it's nearby the home, and with no prying eyes around, he chose not to risk transporting the body over long distances, as the police could intercept him and inspect the vehicle. If he were to bury it, it would consume time and inevitably attract attention. Moreover, carrying a large bag or package somewhere was also perilous, as it could arouse suspicion. The most ideal option for him was to swiftly and discreetly discard the body in the reeds. He hoped that this year it would go undiscovered, while he simply disregarded other potential evidence, since the apartment was leased and concurrently listed for sale. Berezhnoi comprehended that the district was under close scrutiny, and hence he remained discreet, exercising utmost caution. He planned to relocate later, under the guise of moving. However, he did not manage. A Taiman lawyer revealed that Vitaly Berezhnoi could face a life sentence if his guilt is proven under the second paragraphs of Article 105 of the Russian Criminal Code. According to the Criminal Code, for this article and part, the offender may be sentenced to a term ranging from 8 to 20 years or life imprisonment. When the man was brought to the Lenin court to determine preventive measures and placed under enhanced security in a separate glassed cell, he obscured his face, uttered no words, ignored journalists' inquiries, and remained unresponsive to the transpiring events. On August 27th, the court remanded Vitaly Berezhnov in custody until October 25th, at present in connection only to one criminal episode of the murder, the case of Nastya Muravyeva. However, soon another story emerged. It transpired that 10 years ago, when Berezhnov still worked in the Interior Ministry, he was previously scrutinized for involvement in a similar crime committed in Nigan, the murder of 12-year-old Nastya Trigubova. The girl disappeared in the spring of 2011 on her way home from school. A few days later, search teams discovered her body, bearing signs of strangulation and violence. The primary suspect in the case became the janitor Alexei Belov. Nastya's mother learned that before her daughter's disappearance, she corresponded with a man and reported this to the police. During questioning at the Interior Ministry, Belov confessed to the crime, specifying that there were 3 perpetrators. However, he retracted his statements at the investigative committee, including those about his accomplices. According to Belov, he was scared that he would be killed. The leadership of the Interior Ministry also quietly investigated police department personnel for involvement in the crime. Vitaly Berezhnov, who in 2011 worked as an assistant precinct officer, underwent questioning and a polygraph test. He was meticulously scrutinized because, during the period when the girl was killed, Berezhnov began drinking. After a few weeks, he quit the law enforcement agencies altogether. The murder case of Nastya Trigubova remains unsolved to this day. Yugur police have requested DNA samples from Vitaly Berezhnov to compare them with the DNA of the alleged perpetrator, yet confirmation of the man's involvement in that crime is still pending. The funeral of Nastya Muravyeva took place only on the 28th of August, as law enforcement needed to conclude all investigative actions and conduct necessary examinations. All expenses for the girl's burial were undertaken by a local entrepreneur, Alexei Afanasyev. The director of the funeral company bid farewell to the departed on that day. Hundreds attended, including family and close acquaintances. Shortly after the funeral, the Department of Social Welfare of the Tyumen and Tyumen region turned to the court with a claim, seeking to strip Nastya Muravyeva's parents of their parental rights to the remaining children. Several court hearings have transpired for this case, to which they have failed to appear. The trials are still ongoing, and the question of depriving them of their rights remains unresolved. Concurrently, the elder sister of the deceased Nastya, the adult Tatiana, aims to establish guardianship over her younger brother and sister, the latter of whom has been in a social center since the tragedy. In conclusion, It is noteworthy that this entire saga has exposed numerous social issues. This includes the deficiencies in the guardianship system and the unfavorable social environment, fraught with former criminals in which children are compelled to grow. The elementary absence of surveillance cameras, capable of preventing numerous new crimes in this environment, as well as the inefficiency of law enforcement agencies, who managed to unravel this case only after the issue of child disappearances was finally raised at the federal level. While this narrative may not be directly connected to him at the moment, investigation teams from Moscow have been dispatched to Tyumen, tasked with finally unraveling the Tyumen series. Lastly, one cannot ignore the fact that from an entire region half filled with former convicts, the primary perpetrator turned out to be someone least expected, a previously unconvicted former Special Forces operative and policeman. This once again affirms the reality that criminals can emerge from any background at any time, and this awareness should always be remembered.